Okay, so I chose to do my final presentation on auteur theory and how I think it's sort of been or become commodified by studios in order to, I guess, effectively market their movies better. Um, so I figured first it would just be a good idea to start by defining what auteur theory is. It's a theory of filmmaking that claims the director is the central creative voice in the process of creating a film. The term was first established during the French New Wave, which saw uh, directors like Francois Truffaut and Jean-Luc Godard like redefine um, the role of director from a more technical perspective into a more creative, iconic role um, of director. More modern auteurs today include people like Francis Ford Coppola, Ava DuVernay, Martin Scorsese, Greta Gerwig, Quentin Tarantino, Christopher Nolan, and many, many others. Um, so marketing the auteur. Promotional material for films often put the director front and center, which sort of serves to emphasize their individual creative vision for the film. Richard Brody, I think, pretty aptly describes this marketing strategy in a 2014 article for The New Yorker, stating that the director's personal imprint has been diluted into the throng of collaborators on set and off who make a movie's recognition possible. Under the circumstances, the auteur's name seems more like a marketing strategy, the selling of a brand, than a reflection of an artistic practice, and a director's claim to autonomy comes off as vanity and arrogance. Basically, what he's saying here is that the branding of the auteur overshadows the work of thousands of people in filmmaking, and that's sort of a conscious decision that both studios and directors make in order to adequately brand their movie better. Which brings us to this is sort of a pretty famous quote or infamous quote that Scorsese made a few years ago. He compared Marvel movies to theme parks in an interview with Empire. He said, "I don't see them. I tried, but that's not cinema. Honestly, the closest I can think of them, as well made as they are, with actors doing the best they can under the circumstances, is theme parks. It isn't the cinema of a human beings trying to convey emotional, psychological experiences to another human being." And although his criticism is valid, I think Scorsese fails to see himself as part of, I guess, an auteur's version of a theme park, that he himself and many other directors are also being branded and marketed in a similar way to that of Marvel movies. So he himself is not above this sort of commodity or commodification, excuse me. And so these are just sort of title cards that I've picked from various films, one of which we've watched this semester. Top left is Scorsese's name at the beginning of, I believe it was Raging Bull. And then you have Francis Ford Coppola's name at the beginning of Apocalypse Now. More recently, we have Christopher Nolan's movie Tenet that came out over the summer. You see that the drastic change between Scorsese and Coppola branding, title cards, have changed into sort of Christopher Nolan is sort of a brand above Tenet. So it's like a kind of a 2-for-1 attempt to sort of brand the movie as something bigger than just the movie. It's a movie by Christopher Nolan. And then you have Tarantino's title card from, I believe it's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood. That rolls before every single one of his movies. So, and then into more marketing, companies like the Criterion Collection have effectively created a profitable business model around this concept of auteur branding. What they do is they license out older films that are purchased for really, really cheap. They turn around, they scan those movies in higher fidelity, so 4K or 1080p. And what happens is they turn less financially valuable works into modern profit machines, effectively. And most of these older films end up packaged in a collection of other films dedicated to the work of one particular auteur. Prices for these older packaged auteur collections can range anywhere between $90 to $200 each, which is, when you consider what you're buying, incredibly expensive. And these collections usually tend to put the auteur at the front of their product, and the included works, the included films, seem to be infinitely less of a concern. And so these are just some of the examples of that. You have the Fellini collection in the top left, which very proudly shows his face on the front cover. I think it does a decent job actually of showing some of the work that Fellini himself has done. You have John Cassavetes to the right with his face directly in front on the product, and then Agnes Varda, the bottom left, which actually doesn't show any or make mention of any of the included works in the collection itself. And these range from, I think the Fellini one was over $200. Varda was, I think, $150, and Cassavetes was probably somewhere at $80 or $90, which is absurd, in my opinion. And so just to conclude here, why auteur branding? Why do studios do this? Why do auteurs themselves kind of go along with this idea of individual creation? As for studios, I think it's easier for them to sort of approach branding their films, their creative vision behind their films as one cohesive individual force, rather than the force of, the thousands of people it takes to make a film. It's easier to say that Martin Scorsese has directed this film rather than, well, this group of lighting people and this group of riggers have worked on the film. So in that regard, it keeps it simplistic, it keeps it straightforward. And then for audiences, it's sort of, it allows them to understand consistent ideas and themes that are explored by these auteurs, which they can process a certain sense of expectation from a Martin Scorsese film or a Francis Ford Coppola film. And it becomes easier to set expectations and understandings of a film before audiences see it. And this branding strategy seems to be working pretty well for studios with films like, I believe, 2019's Once Upon a Time in Hollywood and Christopher Nolan's Dunkirk grossed collectively together almost $1 billion worldwide. So it's paying off pretty well. But that about covers it. Thank you.